Good morning and welcome to Nigeria Now, showing on your digital first Pan-African news network, that is TOS Television. My name is Merciful Ajinamo. As always, Nigeria Now promises to give you stories from the front pages of the national dailies across Nigeria. And we have a couple of those newspapers this morning. We'll begin from this day newspaper, and I'll just be reading out the stories on the front pages. From the very top there, we see, in reciprocal action, federal government reduces Emirates flight to once weekly. In reciprocal action, federal government reduces Emirates flight to once weekly. You can get all of this story on page 47 of this day newspaper. And then just underneath that, we see INEC, political parties to bear cost of direct primaries. We can get our story again on page 47 of this day newspaper. And then just there we see Buhari. Akande was victim of Obasanjo's diabolical political double cross. We have three writers. The first says, describes APC chieftain as man of inflexible integrity. He can follow to the jungle. And the second one says, author, a selfless leader, says Tunubu. Sanwo-Olu, Onu, others extol his virtues. We can get that on page 8 of this day newspaper. And now we go over to the banner headline of this day newspaper. That's talking about Akande. Buhari promised to pick Tunubu as running mate in 2015, then reneged. We have two writers. The first chronicles how Osibanjo eventually emerged, and then the second, former governor attacks Adebanjo, Falae, others. We can get all of that story on page 8 of this day newspaper. And now we're talking about the coronavirus. Omicron variant, LCCI Nasima charge Nigerians on mass vaccination. We can get all of this story on page 5 of this day newspaper. We move over to the Guardian newspaper, and then from the very top they're still talking about COVID-19 cases. Now they say on page 3, COVID-19 cases surge as Omicron spreads in Africa. We can get that on page 3. And then federal government to fast track $2.3 billion Nigeria cement deal. We can get that on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper as well. And then we see ACF urges Indigbo to start lobbying for 2023 presidency. And that story can be found on page 29 of the Guardian. Wike asks federal government to show evidence of money borrowed from creditors. You can still get our story. The banner headline there is Save Us from Killers. Bandit Sultan, Christian Association of Nigeria, JNI, tell Buhari. We have a couple of writers there. Nigerians are being killed like chickens. Then bandits murdered 80 people in a single night. Sokoto leaders write Buhari. Gunmen kill Katsina commissioner in residence. Bandits gunned down 15 worshippers inside mosque in Niger. Impose 10 million naira fine on Zamfara communities. Troops rescue 20 abducted policemen in Yobe. Amnesty, Buhari's orders to security agencies have changed nothing. And now the federal government, insecurity responsible for Nigeria's fall from preferred investment destination. We can get all of the stories on page 6 of the Guardian. And then under the picture of the day there, we see, I can go into the jungle with Akande, says Buhari. A couple of writers. Insecurity, I don't sympathize with you. You apply to be president, says Akande. At book launch, Nigerians pour tributes, encomiums on Akande. Buhari commissions made in Nigerian Navy ship, helicopter, boats to boost maritime security. We can get all of this story on page 6 of the Guardian. And then we see Amotekun raises the alarm over planned attacks on Ondo State. This story on insecurity is on page 7 of the Guardian. Grab yourself a copy and read about this story. And now we'll move over to the next newspaper, and of course that's the Nigerian Tribune. From the very top, we see on page 30 right there, gunmen kill Katsina commissioner. That story can be found on page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. And then the second story right there is lobby if you want presidency. ACF tells Southeast leaders. We can get that on page 3 as well. And then just on top of the banner headline right there, Sanwo-Olu councils work for peace. We can get that on page 2. Of course, the story is coming after the NSAS protest. And then we see Omicron, federal government begins administration of booster shot today. We can get that on page 2 as well. And then on page 7, chairman, shareholders, laud management, staff at ANN PLC's 45th AGM. And that's we can get out on page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. The banner headline there talks about political parties to bear cost of primaries, INEC tells reps. That story can be found on page 3. And then beside the picture of the day there, OAU student's death, allow Adedoyin access medical facilities, court tells IGP. That can be found on page 27. And then on page 28, hold federal government responsible if we go on strike, ASU warns. And then some orphanages established for sale, trafficking of children, NAPTIP alleges. Some orphanages established for sale, trafficking of children, NAPTIP is saying. We can get out on page 8 the details of that story. And on Twitter ban, court dismisses suit against federal government, fine Serap 100,000 naira. The details of that story can be found on page 8. And then under the picture of the day there, we see Akande, other AD governors, victims of Obasanjo's diabolical double cross coming from Buhari. Governors, ministers, others attend presentation of Akande's autobiography. That can be found on page 4. And then on page 7, we see Amotekun saying why we engage in stop and search in Ondo. And then people killed daily in the north, Sultan lament. It's worrisome that security agencies can't fish out kidnappers. That's coming from the Christian Association of Nigeria. And 800 people abducted by terrorists in 2021, Northern Coalition says. Gunmen killed 9 in Niger, Moscow. Can get that on page 25 and page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. We move over to the Vanguard newspaper, and from the very top there we see a story that says a counter, I spent 28 years on death row for nothing. Onwuche, 68-year-old cook. And we can get out on page 16. And then talking about direct primaries, confusion trails Buhari's return of Electoral Act Amendment Bill to the National Assembly. That can be found on page 32. Terrorist declaration, I no longer associate with bandits. That's coming from Gumi. And we can get out on page 7. Gunmen on rampage in Imo abduct monarch. That can be found on page 9. And then on page 19, we see banks fees, commission income rise 31% to 384.8 billion naira. On the banner headline right there is Sokoto tragedy, Khan Sultan decry worsening state of insecurity. And we can get it on page 5. There are different riders there. We see Nigerians are being killed like chickens, coming from Khan. Federal government should do more beyond condemning killing of Nigerians. That's coming from the Sultan. Laments government lacks will to hold security chiefs to account. And then reps urge Buhari to deploy military personnel to Sokoto, want modern boat to prevent mishaps. Bandits kill 16 worshippers in a mosque in Niger, block highway in Zamfara for 5 days, and then kill 6 motorists. 3 farmers confirmed killed by invading herders in the Damawa community. Osinbajo tasks security agencies on technology-driven solutions. Bandits storm Abuja community, abduct 8, kill housewife. We can get out on page 32. And then on page 7, COVID-19 booster dose vaccination begins today. We can get out on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper, and that's coming from the federal government. And then we see just underneath that, Vanguard reporter, Todu Salem for burial tomorrow. And then underneath that on page 11, Romani's death, violence in schools, further signs of government failure. That's coming from Afenifere. And we can get all of their stories on the Vanguard newspaper. And don't forget to also stay updated on our website at www.tostvnetwork.com for updates on Nigeria and of course across Africa. Our social media platforms are right there so you can follow and stay updated. That is TOS TV Network on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget, my name is Merciful Ajinimo and we'll see you same time tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.